with all their might. The darkness beckons with a chilling call. Come closer, listen to the shadows draw. So subscribe and like, and don't be afraid to dive into the darkness where the shadows are laid. Tales from the shadows will spook your world. Join us on this journey, let your fears unfurl. Stay tuned, stay weird, and watch out for what lurks in the shadows.
Welcome, friends, to the dark and the deep, where whispers linger and shadows creep. Tales from the shadows, where legends arise, with ghostly stories and myths that mesmerize. The minds at TFTS Labs have been working hard to come up with more exciting tales that have yet to be told. Tales that take popular characters and put them in situations we have never thought they would be in stories we've never heard. Today's tale is about Odin and Loki. A weird combination, but worth it. It is called The Cursed Pact of Odin and Loki. Odin wandered through the dense forest on the outskirts of Asgard, his mind heavy with a vision from the night before. Shadows had crept into his dreams, whispering warnings of doom and betrayal. He had seen a future where darkness overtook Asgard, and his kin turned against him. Suddenly, a familiar voice pierced the quiet. "Brooding again, old man?" Loki's sly grin was unmistakable as he slipped from behind a tree, his face half in shadow. Odin narrowed his one good eye, knowing Loki's playful tone masked far more severe intentions. "What is it you're looking for, Allfather?" Loki asked, his voice lowering. "Power, perhaps? Or the answer to your nightmares?" Reluctantly, Odin shared his vision. Loki listened intently, his eyes gleaming with mischief. "I know a way to ease your fears," Loki said, his voice dripping with charm. "There's an ancient altar not far from here, where gods once went to seek power over the unknown. Together, we could unlock knowledge beyond any seen before." Odin hesitated, well aware of Loki's penchant for deceit, but the image of Asgard in flames haunted him. Against his instincts, he allowed Loki to lead him deeper into the forest, where the twisted branches blocked the moonlight, casting the forest in complete darkness. They arrived at the altar, a stone slab covered in deep carvings and symbols Odin could barely decipher. The air grew cold as Loki began reciting words in a language that hadn't been heard in millennia. "To gain true power, we must share a bond that transcends trust," Loki murmured, producing a ceremonial dagger. Odin gripped the dagger without further words, slicing a line across his palm. Loki did the same, and they clasped hands, their blood mingling and dripping onto the altar. A tremor rippled through the earth beneath them. Silence blanketed the forest for a moment, so holy it felt as if all life had vanished. Then, a quiet, cold laugh echoed from the shadows around them. Loki glanced nervously at Odin, masking his unease, and whispered, "Now we have what we came for." Upon returning to the golden halls of Asgard, Odin attempted to shake off the unsettling feeling. Yet that night, as he lay alone in his chambers, strange whispers seeped into his mind, at first barely a murmur. He sat up, glancing around the room, but found only empty shadows. Every night, the whispers grew, calling out to him. They spoke of his past failures, fears for the future, and doubts about his strength. In these whispers, he heard the voices of fallen warriors, long-dead kings, and even Frigga, accusing him of not protecting Asgard from impending ruin. Meanwhile, Loki, too, found himself haunted. At first, it was nothing more than a flicker in the corner of his eye, a shadow where there should be none. But soon, it became impossible to ignore. Every time he turned, he saw figures lingering in the shadows, their eyes dark and empty, watching him with a hatred that chilled him to his core. Odin's patience was wearing thin. He called upon his advisors, hoping they would notice something amiss or sense the disturbance. However, none reported any issues. It seemed only he and Loki were affected. Loki's silence unsettled him. Loki, in truth, was terrified. The shadow he thought he could ignore was no longer content with lingering in the corners. It seemed to move with him, following his every step through the palace. During the day, he saw it in the reflection of polished metal surfaces, always close behind. Loki tried to dismiss the visions as illusions, tricks of his mind, but the fear was sinking deeper, gnawing at his confidence. He began to feel its icy breath on his neck, its presence pressing closer as though waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Odin, meanwhile, found himself growing weaker, his once sharp mind clouded with doubt and fear. He had always been able to rely on his strength, his wisdom, and his visions. Now, though, the whispers in his mind blurred the line between reality and nightmare. Realizing they could not face this darkness alone, Odin and Loki journeyed together to seek out Völva, the ancient seeress whose visions pierced the very fabric of the realms. Her cave was at the edge of Asgard, a place of wisdom and dread. "You have awakened an ancient force," she murmured, her voice low and heavy with sorrow. "Something that has waited for centuries, trapped between realms, its prison held shut by chains of betrayal. You have severed those chains, and now it seeks to claim its freedom."
Are you a fan of Tales from the Shadows? Want to support the show? Well, you're in luck. You can buy some Tales from the Shadows merch by clicking the link in the description. Whether you want accessories, a hoodie, or maybe even just a t-shirt, Tales from the Shadows has a little bit of it all. So don't wait, order your Tales from the Shadows merch now. Now let's get back into the tale.
As Odin and Loki journeyed more profoundly into the lands beyond Asgard, Odin was haunted by memories of old legends. He recalled stories from his youth, warnings spoken in hushed tones by his mentors, tales of ancient creatures, forsaken realms, and pacts that bound souls to their promises for eternity. The vision Völva had given him of the cursed realm lingered in his mind. And as they ventured further, he began to suspect that this curse might be tied to an older darkness than he had ever imagined. "Do you recall any tales of this creature, Loki?" Odin asked, his voice edged with suspicion. Loki hesitated. "Perhaps a story or two, whispered here and there," he admitted, his gaze fixed ahead. Odin pressed, hoping to force Loki to reveal what he suspected. Yet, Loki dodged his questions, shrugging off responsibility as a minor inconvenience. But Odin was not deceived. He could see something shifting in Loki's expression. A flicker of recognition, perhaps even fear. The silence between them thickened, heavy with distrust. In the quiet, the curse seemed to creep closer, like a shadow drawing its cold fingers across their skin. As they entered the mountains, the wind howled through the rocks, carrying with it faint, shrill, and broken voices. Every so often, Odin and Loki caught glimpses of ghostly figures slipping between the rocks, their faces frozen in expressions of terror. Odin's grip tightened on his spear, his knuckles white. "You knew about this curse, didn't you?" he finally accused, his voice rough with anger. Loki merely laughed, though there was little joy in it. "Would it surprise you if I did, old man?" His words were sharp, but his face betrayed a sliver of regret that Odin didn't miss. The mistrust between them grew palpable, like a third presence walking beside them, feeding on their doubts. They could feel the creature's influence growing stronger each day. Their path led them through cursed lands that twisted and stretched like something alive. The once familiar landscape of Asgard faded behind them, replaced by a barren wasteland that seemed to shift under their feet, its skies a deep, oppressive grey. The soil was dry and cracked, the air thick with the scent of decay. Shadows seemed to twist and writhe, moving just out of sight, constantly slipping away whenever they tried to focus on them. Loki could no longer contain his dread. Every step seemed to draw him closer to the creature's grasp, and he was beginning to feel the weight of his choices. His visions of a monstrous beast grew more vivid each night, filling his sleep with snapping jaws and cruel laughter. The creature was in his mind now, whispering of promises made and broken, of debts that had yet to be paid. Odin, too, was feeling the weight of their journey. As they pressed forward, he began to see visions of Asgard in ruin, its towers crumbling, its people screaming, all because he had failed to protect them from the darkness he had let slip into their realm. The cursed realm was warping his thoughts, dragging him deeper into doubt and fear. He had always trusted his own strength and wisdom, but now he found himself questioning everything, even his right to lead Asgard. The ground beneath them seemed to tremble with sinister energy, and the wind howled with unnatural voices, echoing their worst fears back at them. Each step became more complex, as if the land was trying to swallow them whole. By the time they reached the heart of the cursed realm, they were both exhausted, worn down by the relentless psychological torment. They knew they were close to whatever force had been awakened by their pact. It was waiting for them, and they could feel its gaze like a dark weight. In the center of the cursed wasteland, they saw a figure shrouded in shadows, its form shifting and twisting like smoke caught in the wind. Surrounding it were countless spirits, spectral beings bound to the creature by threads of darkness. Their eyes were hollow, their faces contorted in anguish as they reached toward Odin and Loki, their voices a cacophony of pain and despair. The creature stepped forward, its shape growing clearer as it emerged from the darkness. It was monstrous, a grotesque combination of fanged mouths and shifting limbs, with eyes as empty as a starless night. Its voice was a growl that echoed through the air, filling the landscape with a sound that seemed to shake the earth. "You have returned to me, Loki," it hissed, a wicked satisfaction in its tone. "Did you think I would forget? Did you think I would not remember the one who bound me here?" Odin's eyes narrowed, his gaze snapping to Loki, who was now pale and silent. "What is it talking about?" he demanded, his voice laced with fury. Loki swallowed, unable to meet Odin's gaze. "It was a long time ago," he admitted, his voice barely a whisper. "I made a deal with this creature, promised it power and freedom in exchange for certain abilities. But I tricked it. I bound it to this realm, leaving it to rot in torment." Odin's anger flared, his hand clenching around his spear. "And you thought you could bind this creature again without consequence?" His voice was sharp, filled with both betrayal and fury. Loki's silence was all the answer he needed. They both knew that the curse had fed on Loki's betrayal, that their blood pact had been the key to unleashing the creature's power. The creature let out a low, menacing laugh. "Only a life willingly sacrificed can bind me now," it said, its gaze shifting between Odin and Loki. "But only one who has tasted betrayal can pay the price." The creature's words hung in the air, thick with implication. Odin felt the weight of the decision settles upon him like an iron shackle. His mind raced, and his gaze hardened as he looked at Loki, who was trying to avoid his eyes. "Sacrifice," the creature had said. One would have to die to end the curse, and Odin knew what Loki was trying to avoid. He turned to Loki. "This was your doing," he said, his voice cold and unyielding. "You brought this curse upon us." Realizing he had no way out, Loki tried to shift the blame. "Think about it, Odin. You have ruled for eons. Perhaps this is your moment to pass on," he suggested, his voice dripping with desperation. "After all, wouldn't it be the ultimate act of loyalty? To die for Asgard?" Odin felt rage burn through him, an intense fury that momentarily blinded him. He stepped toward Loki, his hand tightening around his spear, feeling the desire to strike him down. But at that moment, he realized that his anger and hatred were precisely what the creature wanted. This curse thrived on betrayal and mistrust. If he allowed it to corrupt him further, then it would win. The creature watched, its eyes glinting with satisfaction, knowing its power grew with each moment of hesitation and doubt between the two gods. Odin took a deep breath, calming himself as he formulated a plan. He knew that the creature could only be bound by sacrifice, but he also knew that this curse had twisted Loki's soul in ways that even death could not undo. He held out his dagger, and with a sudden, swift movement, he cut across his eye. The pain was blinding, but at that moment, he saw clearly all the secrets that Loki had kept, all the betrayals he had committed, all how he had twisted their bond for his gain. With his sacrifice of vision, he could now see the creature's essence, its link to both him and Loki. "If I cannot kill the creature," he said, his voice a dark whisper, "then I will bind it with the one who betrayed it." Loki's eyes widened as he realized what Odin intended to do. But before he could react, Odin had already begun his spell, using his blood and Loki's to weave an unbreakable chain of binding magic. Sensing the trap, the creature lunged toward Odin, its fangs bared and claws outstretched, but it was too late. The spell took hold, binding the beast and Loki within the dark prison of the cursed realm. Bound to the cursed realm for eternity, Odin and Loki now find themselves trapped with the creature, their souls entwined in a never-ending cycle of resentment and betrayal. The creature looms over them, feeding off their hatred, relishing every moment of torment and distrust between them. And so they remain, prisoners of their own choices, eternally bound to the darkness they unleashed. Odin and Loki, once powerful gods, are now little more than shadows, forever trapped in a world of nightmares, their suffering never ending. As the centuries pass, the creature feeds on their anguish, drawing power from their unceasing hatred and shared curse. In the end, only silence remains, save for the creature's soft laughter, echoing through the shadows, a twisted reminder of the pact they had once made. Our tale ends with an everlasting horror, where Odin and Loki remain trapped by their mistrust and betrayal. That's going to do it for this tale. Be sure to like and subscribe so you never miss a story, and don't forget to comment on your favorite tale. You may see it here on Tales from the Shadows. Until next time, stay tuned, stay weird, and watch out for what lurks in the shadows.
This has been Tales from the Shadows, where the shadows speak with stories that will make you weak. Join us on this journey into the unknown. Tales from the shadows, where fear is shown. So subscribe and like, and don't be afraid to dive into the darkness where the shadows are laid.